a little bit more detail once you guys see this video.
ನಮಗೆ ಅಂದ್ರೆ ನಾವು ಪ್ರತಿಯೊಂದು ನಾವು ಮ್ಯಾನ್ಯಲ್ ಫಸ್ಟ್ ಮ್ಯಾನ್ಯಲ್ ಅಲ್ಲಿ ತಗೊಂಡು ಸ್ಕ್ಯಾನ್ ಮಾಡಬೇಕಾಗಿತ್ತು. ಸ್ಕ್ಯಾನ್ ಮಾಡಿ ನಾವು ಬಿನ್ಗೆ ಸಬ್ಸ್ಕ್ರೈಬ್ ಮಾಡಬೇಕಾಗಿತ್ತು. ಈಗೇನಂದ್ರೆ ನಾವು ಬಾಕ್ಸ್ ಮೇಲೆ ಇದು ಸ್ಕ್ಯಾನ್ ಆಗುತ್ತೆ. QR ಒಂದು ಕೋಡಿಂದ ಸ್ಕ್ಯಾನ್ ಆಗಿ ಬಿನ್ಗೆ ಹೋಗಿ ಅದು ಡಂಪ್ ಮಾಡುತ್ತೆ ಸರ್. ಡಂಪ್ ಮಾಡಿದಾಗ ನಮಗೆ ಅದು ತುಂಬಾ ಈಸಿ ಅನ್ಸುತ್ತೆ. ಮತ್ತೆ ನಾವು ತುಂಬಾ ಕಲಿಯೋದು ತುಂಬಾ ಇದೆ. ನಮ್ಗೆ ಇದರಿಂದ ನಮಗೆ ಕ್ರಿಯೇಟ್ ತುಂಬಾ ಇಂಪ್ರೂವ್ ಆಗುತ್ತೆ ಸರ್.
Yeah, so what you see here is one of the facility of Flipkart, and this is the warehouse. So when I say warehouse, like this is a facility where we store all the items that we sell on the Flipkart. I think most of the items that we sell on the Flipkart. And whenever you go on the Flipkart website and you place an order, right, it kind of sends this order request to this facility that they need to pick this item, pack it in the right packaging material in order to ensure the safety of the product. Put the label details of the customer where this product needs to go to, right? And then we actually do a sortation for the right destination. So what I mean here, right? So when Flipkart say they deliver all over India, right? We basically doing delivery to thousands of pin codes. So one facility is actually serving thousands of pin codes, and thus I have to actually sort all the packages that I prepare into this thousand of pin codes, right? Where these packages need to go to, right? So that's a very critical activity for Flipkart to ensure your orders are reaching to the customer at the right time, right, and the right condition as well, right? So sortation was a very crucial as well as a pretty complex task for us, and that's where we actually developed this technology which actually helped us to significantly reduce the sortation duration that we used to take, and has also reduced our dependency on the manpower, right? So unfortunately in this video the person who's talking is in Kannada, but primarily what he is talking about is that there is a lot of misconception around robotics, right? People say that if you introduce robotics, many people are going to lose their jobs, right? So what the person is also talking about in this video, that actually some of this technology, right, who are working along with the human or operators are actually helping operators to make their task much more easier, right? And also ergonomically, right? So the person can work for much longer hours. At the same time, they kind of help them to upskill their skill set, right? So now the person is not only doing a manual work, but he also understands technology. He also understands how to work with it. What are the right ways of working with it? If things go wrong, how can I go about fixing it? How do I go about reporting it, right? So that so the person talks about it, how some of this technology helps them to make their job much more easier. At the same time, also helps them to upskill their skill set, right? So actually helps them to go to the next level of the skill set, right? So this is a small example about how robotics and automation are biggest value add to any industry, right? So here I want to talk about it. I think one of the discussion and talk we had previously, which Bala took it, we did talk about it that, why industries invest in automation, right? Automation and robotics, it's not something new to us. It has been there for many years, almost for like 20, 30 years, more than that. Though in India, it has, started coming very recently, and there are many industries like manufacturing have been investing in robotics actively. But e-commerce and retail player are like realizing the potential of robotics, in the recent year, and there is a reason to it, which I will cover up here, right? So the couple of reasons why industry invests in automation is, I think one of the biggest reason is the cost reduction, right? Where the robots come into picture because it can do the same job that a human can do, or maybe sometimes a job which human cannot do at all, right? Much more efficiently, right? And it reduces my dependency on the manpower. Okay, so right now, if you look at India, the manpower is also continuously, the labor cost is increasing, right? The space cost is increasing. So it's very important for most of the industry to be able to do the job in a limited space, but in a much more efficient way, right? And that's where the cost reduction where it really triggers into, because then I'm saving into the cost, I'm saving into the manpower, and a robot can actually work for 24/7, right? It might need some downtime for the preventive maintenance, but otherwise, or charging, but otherwise it can work by 24/7, right? So that's when I get much more efficient ecosystem in place, and that's where the cost reduction plays a much important role for most of the industry, right? When I am actually delivering packages to the customer, right? I want to able to give my customers 1 day delivery or 2 day delivery with no cost, right? And at the same time, as I'm running a business, I want to ensure that my cost component is within the control, right? So most of the business actually look forward to keep their cost reduced, right? And when you say this cost, there's very important parameter that comes into where the robotics come in play, right? So most of the companies do not even think of robotics till they achieve a certain growth or a scale, right? Robotics start making a sense because it's kind of one-time investment that you do, which kind of rips your benefit across over multiple years. So it's very important for many of the businesses to reach a certain scale and to actually start giving orders or having customers regularly uh, uh, at a certain level, right? They need to do like a 10,000 or 15,000 or 1 lakh order per day to actually make the whole robotics technology sense for them, right? So it's not a simple cost reduction. So actually robotics start giving any company or any industry cost advantage with the scale most of the time. What comes next, which one of the critical reason is improve product quality or deliver experience, right? I did talk about it, like especially in the e-commerce industry, the customer experience is extremely crucial, right? As a customer to Flipkart, what do you look for? You look for that, am I getting a right product, what I order? Is it in the right condition, and has it reached to me within a time, right? And considering right now the industry, the way it's going, the customer expectations are that they should receive their product within a day or within a 2 day. They don't care where it is coming from, right? So in order to ensure that you are meeting up to your customer expectations, you need to finish a task fast as possible, right? So that's where automation or robotics brings a lot of value, because it is not only is it able to reduce the manpower, but at the same time it also able to reduce the time that you take to do a particular task, right? So that's where it enables even e-commerce, some of the e-commerce companies to actually reduce the whole time of picking the product, packing from the customer, are ensure and making it reach to the customer on time. Increased productivity, I think I did cover this, is where a robot can do a task a human can do in much faster way, and thus increasing productivity is one of the key factor where industries actually invest in automation. Flexibility of product mix and peaks, right? So many times what happens in the industry, right, we don't have the same scale every day. Many times we run sales day, we have certain festivals coming, and that suddenly the volume increases for us, right? So we have a business which has a lower volume requirement one day and a suddenly higher volume requirement one day, right? So many times a technology is leveraged to get that flexibility in terms of how much your facility is capable of doing. So it helps them to meet these peaks. Next, talking about safety measures and dangerous tasks. As I said, many of the robots can do, human can do much more efficiently, but at the same time, they can also do some of the tasks which are dangerous for humans to do, right? So there are many industry, we don't see this right now in e-commerce or retail, but there are many industries who actually go for automation and robotics for safety measures and dangerous tasks. Next is solve for labor shortage and higher labor costs. Um, so this was one of the major reasons why many countries like US and Europe have a very high automation, like industrial automation that you see. Is in UK and in Europe and US, right? You see the labor cost is very high, and also there is a shortage of labor at the same time, right? That's where they leverage, they reduce the dependency on the labor by heavily investing on automation. Till some time, that's the reason automation was not making a lot sense in India, because the labor was much cheaper. So everything that actually a robot can do, a human could do in much cheaper way, right? So but as you know, as the industry is growing, the economy is growing, the labor cost is also increasing, and the space cost is also increasing. So that's why solving for labor shortage and higher labor cost is also much more relevant in India right now. Innovation through new application, and the next is brand perception, right? So let me put this together. There are many companies who actually focus on innovation, right? The whole brand image is about innovation. For example, if you think of Apple as a company, right, you think of innovation, right? So there are many companies who actually look at automation, try to leverage automation not only from process improvement perspective, but as a brand perception perspective, right? So if you are able to demonstrate that you are actually always on your toe and investing in the new technology which is coming in the market, that means you're focused towards innovation. You're actually putting a lot of research into it, right? So it kind of builds a perception in the mindset of your customer that yes, this is a company that was innovation driven. So that's the kind of products I'm going to buy from them are going to be always, you know, best in the class, and they are going to always innovate in terms of the product offering as well as the customer experience, right? So this at a very high level actually talks about the why industries are investing in automation. um, Next, let me take you through what are the factors which are considered for selecting an automation, right? So we saw in a previous slide, for every industry, for every company, investing in automation or robotics comes with an objective, right? You need to have a reason why investing it, right? So either it's a cost, it's a productivity, it's a brand perception, everything has a goal to it, right? Every company has its own set of factors that it considers for selecting an automation, and it's also based on the goal. But this is what we generally try to follow, or we have seen in most of the industries following, right? Uh, where every automation and robotics needs some investment. So it comes with a capex that we actually need to invest in. Then whenever there is a capex investment, right, we have to actually go through this whole cycle of actually understanding what is the return on that investment. So where you build a complete business case for that robotics and automation to understand how, whether that automation is making sense for you or not, and what in within how many years actually you're going to reap the benefit of all the investment that you have done, right? So every company has different factors that it consider for selecting any automation, right? For example, let's take an example of the e-commerce industry. So what matters for the e-commerce industry is primarily because since it's still a growing industry, it is almost growing to 2x 3x every year over year, right? um, so the whole business is scaling up pretty fast. So some of the industries who are at their stage of growing pretty fast look for an automation who kind of give them a throughput flexibility. The reason they look for throughput flexibility, right, because they don't want to do a very huge capacity investment in one go, and say the automation is very rigid for them. That one automation means they actually have to every time scale up with like 50,000 say orders per day. That's the scale up that the automation needs, and they may not be scaling up with that or the that much of scale, and they need a flexibility so that I can incrementally increase the automation capacity, say by 5,000, right? So that's kind of flexibility that they look for. They also look for modularity. The reason they look for modularity is, see, these are the business that run 24/7, right? They don't want to stop anytime. So they don't want to have like a 1 point failure in their automation. So they need that modularity that if one of the part is not working, can I just, by my rest of the system keep working, I can, and meanwhile I just replace that part or object, and then I still keep the whole automation running, right, without having a complete downtime. So that's what the modularity that they look at, that can the automation be a bunch of modules that come together, and if there is any defect, that one module can be replaced. Movability, see, most of these companies, they have multiple warehouses, right? But the way they scale up, the way they are growing, within a year, within a couple of months, that facility becomes like too small for them, right? And they are continuously moving and expanding to newer and a bigger facilities. So for them, the automation giving them a flexibility that I can just probably pack it up and move it to the new facility, or I can just have a dependency for a like couple of weeks to move the automation from one facility to another facility. So that's kind of flexibility that they look at. When you say quick deployment, see, most of these companies, they have sale running almost every other month, right? So they cannot bring down the whole facility down for a much longer time. For a year, I cannot close down a facility because there is a deployment or automation going on, right? So I need to have a automation which can help me give that flexibility that can be deployed quickly on the ground, so it reduces my downtime that I have within the facility, right? And almost all the automation, when they're deployed in the industry, they go through this whole process of improvising further and further on it, right? So how can I make the process much better? How can I actually add another optimization on top of it? So I keep on ripping more and more benefit on the automation that I'm getting. So this is all cycle of understanding what factors matters to my industry for any automation, and these factors can be totally different from industry to industry. So this is talking about actually India specific, right? That why has automation have become attractive now in India? Uh, and this I will talk especially from the perspective of also e-commerce and retail industry, right? Um, so labor and space has been playing much important role. That as I said, around the years, the labor costs have actually started increasing. At the same time, the robots cost have actually started reducing, right? uh, you can actually see, and that can be, one of the big player, like you can be giving big credit to it to countries like China, because they have actually really invested big time in robotics, in bringing the cost down, right, of the whole technology and of most of the components that we use in robotics, right? So somewhere we have actually are in the golden phase right now, where we see as an industry, as an economy, we see space and the labor cost increasing. At the same time, we see the robotic ecosystem is evolving, and now there are a lot more attention, investment in the robotics industry, and that's where the robotic prices are reducing, right? And that's where the whole business case, the whole ROI concept, I said return on investment concept, is making a lot more sense in the Indian context, which was not making sense before. Having said that, there are still many challenges that we have in India, even right now. As I said, there are many players. I think one of the world's best players that we see in a country like US, UK, Europe, also China. But many of these players, they still do not consider India as that attractive market, right? Because if you see, actually in India also, there are even in e-commerce retail, there are two big players right now, and there are other players who are actually playing a lot in a niche market, but they really don't have that scale. So most of these players do not see a huge potential in India yet. They do see some of the industries who are interested in, big players who are interested in investing in robotics, but they still doesn't see a huge market as they see in US and Europe, right? So they try to be focused more into those countries, and they are a bit hesitant in entering an Indian market. Not proven in India. See, this is a very important point, that our Indian context is also very unique, right? In terms of infrastructure, in terms of even people being familiar with the technology, also in terms of environment as well, right? We have a humid environment, we have a dusty environment, the temperature scales are very different, right? So it's very important for any of these players or any of the automation to be proven in India. Just because something has worked in other country, it does not mean it will work in India, right? Because there are a lot of other factors come into picture when you talk about India. So many of the solutions that we see in the market, right, they are proven in a lot of other geographies, but they are not proven in India, right? And that's why it becomes very important that any technology or automation that we invest in, we have to bring it in India, see its feasibility, and then actually consider that technology for the scale up, for the business perspective, right? Proven technologies are not so modular, leading to high capex, right? So as I said, a lot of investment in robotics and modular technology have started happening in last 4 5 years. Previously we did have automation, but they were most of very high bulky and high cost automation. There are a lot of new technology evolution that happening in the world, I would say. But even today, the India is not the epicenter for it. There are a lot of other countries where this is happening. So we have to go through that whole cycle of, investing in this technology or actually innovating in India itself to actually start proving those technology in India. Automation skill set is not easily available. Unfortunately, this is a sad state, but that's true. There are a lot of talent, in the area of robotics, is actually making a choice not to stay in India rather than go outside of India and actually make their career there. And that's why even if many companies who are keen on investing in robotics, or they are ready to, invest in research in robotics, they do not find a good talent in India. So there is actually a whole lot of investment, a lot of industries have to do in building the talent as well as attracting the talent, right? Um, I think this is one of the very key messages to all of you, because I understand all of you are extremely keen, enthusiastic about the robotics, right? So if any of you pursue this as a career, please I would request you to do invest in your country as well. Stay back. We have a lot of opportunities here, and just don't by default make a choice of go out of country. And you obviously go out for learning, but do go back and invest in your country as well, because we have a lot of opportunity, but we don't have enough talent available in India right now. Very few companies in India are working on automation. That is also true, right? As I said, for in India ecosystem, for automation to make sense, you have to reach to a certain scale. So there are very few companies who attended that scale, and thus you see a lot of companies who are ready to invest in automation. And also there is also mindset, right? You need to believe in innovation to actually start investing in automation as a technology. Connected machines are still evolving. Bottleneck will be IT infrastructure and sensors. So we see a lot of technology like sensors, RFIDs, actually coming to picture, trying to build a whole, Internet of Things kind of an connectivity to us. But most of those use cases are still not making sense because of the cost, because of technology platforms. So all of them are still evolving. And thus all that we see, as a vision or as a future is still right, not we have it here in the hand, but we do have to do a lot of investment in it. Um, Cost structure and value chain, I think this comes into picture because if most of the automations are not coming from India, they are not built in India, they are not made in India, and we have to get it from any other country, the cost is very high because there is a cost of a hardware and there is also significant cost that you bear to get those parts in India, right? Then you actually pay for the talent in like in India, probably the cost of development is much, much cheaper versus any other country. So development cost becomes high, the hardware cost becomes high, also the cost of imports and transportation becomes high. So overall, the cost structure it's kind of blown up because of we have a significantly high dependency on importing the automation and building it in India. Um, so I think let me just take a stop here, and I think that's where I said I want to also make this session a little bit interactive because I know all of you are pretty enthusiastic in robotics. I just thought to make it a little bit more interactive, and before I move to the next set of slides that I want to talk about. I just thought let me have just like kind of a Q&A session with you guys. And I think I just did check with Naman. So you have this chat kind of a window where you can actually reply the answer of this question. And I think we should all clap for the person who get this question right and first go, right? So let me talk about this question if you're able to hear me. So feel free to just answer in the chat window. I don't know. Do I already see it? Oh, I already see it.
I think everyone's going for D.
Yeah. Sorry. So D is correct. And I think let me just talk. Where's the person who answered it first? Param. I don't know how to pronounce it. Paramda. I don't know. Can someone help me with this name?
It's Param Davda, I think.
Oh, okay. So I think we all should clap for Paramda. I think he got it correct. I think he's the first one who got it correct, as I understand. Yeah. So let me ask you another question. Next question. Which of the actuators that has the greatest force capability? Electric, hydraulic, pneumatic, or magnetic? Where do I start? Sorry, when did the last question end? Let me just check. No idea. Okay. Okay. So the answer is hydraulic. The person who got it correct is Neil Junjunwala. Am I right? Yeah. So good job, Neil. You got it correct. So next is the last question. I'm not able to see you guys, and I'm not able to get any feedback. This is very sad. Okay, so this is the next question. Soft gripper used in robotics is one having point A, point contact between the finger and object, area contact between the finger and the object, the line contact between the finger and the object, and none of the above. Okay, so this is question 3. Okay, so the answer is the area contact between finger and the object. And I think the person who got it right is, again, Neil. Good job, Neil. I think you're getting multiple answers correct. I think we all should clap for Neil. Okay. So, okay, let me go to the next section now. So, so I did talk about the industries and why do they invest in the robotics, what are the challenges that they have, what kind of factors they considered. So now what I want to talk about is what are the kind of industrial robotics segments, right? And this also kind of gives you an overview about evolution that we have had in the area of industrial robotics. So as we said, there is one category of robotics segment that is a standalone automation. We have a 3 subtype in it. One is we call gantry, second is articulated, and third is SCARA. So the gantry are the one who are kind of most of the time they are rooted at one location. Do they have a arm or which kind of move in only a 2D direction? They are most of the time industrially used. For example, we many times have like a cameras or mounted on top of it to read the barcodes. We also have DWS system which helps us to take a dimension of packages. So they are used in manufacturing industry, like in a car assembly also you would have seen a gantry like setup being there. So they are beneficial in a situation where the space is limited and they can be mounted on the overhead, right? The second is articulated. They have 3 and 6 degree out of freedom, enabling much more higher flexibility. Though at the base they are still stationary. They are most of the time used for cases like spot welding, palletizing, and material handling. Third, we have which is a SCARA. They are more model like a human arm. So this is much more evolved, where they kind of represent the human hand. They have elbow, shoulder, and a wrist. So they are used under tasks which are very fast and repetitive and a precision point. So you would have seen a kind of a SCARA kind of a bird who is able to do the sketch of a particular. So if they can absorb an image and actually do cutting or a sketch of a particular type. They can also sometimes use for moving object from one location to another location, and as well as assembly, as I said. Okay. The next is, this is more about the next evolution that has happened in industrial robotics. One is a collaborative. So these are the robots who actually work with humans. They also what we call as a cobots. They directly interact with human workers, and you really don't need so they are designed in such a way that they are safe to work with a human, so you don't need a lot of safety measures while working with them. So that's a very important factor for designing them. They actually help many times for a human to actually increase his precision or to do a particular task in a much faster and efficient way. Like you can see them for again in the assembly, also to do you actually see them also a lot of where you have this chip building Intel kind of factories. You will see a lot of collaborative robots. Second is AGV and AMRs. So you would have seen AGV is actually the video that I shared with you before with Flipkart. So they are kind of a small robots who are mobile, and they can navigate from one location to another. It can be either a guided navigation or also a laser-based navigation. These are the ones we have seen, on larger scale being used in a logistic and a delivery industry, right, where they actually help us to move certain material from one location to another location. They can range from, they can carry weights from 5 kg, 2 kg to almost 100 to 200 kgs, right? So they can vary in size, also as well cost, based on the capability, and they are generally used for movement of the material. So they are also used, the AGVs are also used for deliveries and so sometimes. So we have this small self-driving bot where you can actually keep the packages and they can actually navigate across. So kind of a self-driving vehicle, but not as sophisticated as that, but they can, in a limited area, they can actually navigate and do the task. Exoskeletons, I think there is one category I would like to talk about is more of a wearables, right? Exoskeleton also one of them. They actually are connected to human body and they support. So they are majorly used for in an industry where if a person has to lift something very heavy, many times exoskeletons are used to assist them for lifting, also climbing. Also, I think they have, not in the industry, I think in the medical or industry also, they have a lot of use cases now coming up. I have not captured the wearables, right? So one of the new segment also the wearables, where we have this VR glasses as well as AR glasses that are being used in the industry. They actually kind of help the operators to do the right, do a particular. They kind of act as an assistant for the operator to help them to do a particular task. For example, if I have a person whose job is to actually walk across the warehouse and find the product in like an array of shelves that we have, right? So something like an AR glass can actually assist the operator to tell him that how he should navigate, and it also helps him to kind of give a guidance that what kind of product he needs to pick, how the product looks like, how much quantity he needs to pick. So that's kind of an assistant who is continuously with you, not only audio but as well as the visuals, who is helping you to actually do your task in much more efficient way. This is next, and which I talk about Internet of the Things. I think this is where the taking the whole robotics ecosystem to the next level, where you actually connect everything, and you have each of the system talking to each other, and enabling. So this is a enabling the whole ecosystem to function much better way. This is just a view of a facility who is entirely connected, where you have this forklifts who are also automatically guided in terms of where they need to move. You have a person also getting visually guided about how we should lift, how what are the details about the product that is handling. You also have the items who have RFIDs on top of it, so they are able to actually let the system know what is their location, what is their condition, what kind of temperature they are in, right? So there are a lot of information that most of this sensors and obviously devices are helping you to gather. And now we actually need to invest and in a huge platform who can actually take this information and build the intelligence on top of it, right? So it's all about building that whole connected ecosystem, not only talking about a robotics in its individual, but actually talk about building the whole ecosystem about it. So as I said, IoT includes network connection of physical objects and the links between people and processes and data. So IoT is something which actually brings your automation, your people, your processes and data all together, and kind of builds the intelligence on top of it, right? Some of the applications are obviously smart warehouses, self-driving cars, smart homes. Now, I think everyone in the house has Alexa, has Google, okay Google, who have lights which you can switch it off using voice, right? So I think we are evolving to not even industry. I think our everyday life is also evolving to I think accommodate robotics in your lifestyle. Um, Okay, so I think from here the Bala will take over. He will just take you guys through what are the application of different robotics that we have talked about in e-commerce industry. Bala, you there?
Yeah. So thanks, Sonali. So before that, there are a couple of questions. Full form of AGV and AMR. Some of you have answered. Just I'll give some more details on that. AGVs are automated guided vehicles where they follow a QR code or a magnetic strip or a color strip, or there need to be certain markers either on the wall or on the floor, which actually guides the vehicle. So they need always a reference point to locate itself, and then they guide themselves. Right? That's automatic guided vehicles. AMRs are basically autonomous mobile robots. A very extended example of that would be the self-driving cars, where it scans the environment, understands what are the different obstacles it has got. It understands people coming in front of it, at what speed it is coming, is there any hump in the road, or is there a pit in the road, so how it needs to adjust itself, what are the different light conditions, right? So that is AMRs, right? That's slightly more advanced than automated guided vehicles. And the next question was about exoskeletons. Yes, exoskeletons do have a lot of potential in the medical field, where you assist the physically challenged people with their regular daily routines. yes, they do have a lot of application in the medical field as well. So that's the couple of questions that we had. So, and I think let's proceed to the application of robotics and automation in the e-commerce industry. Um, Before we go into the application, one perspective we need to bring into the e-commerce industry is that it is all single piece flow, unlike a conventional manufacturing setup that we see where after you start manufacturing, you pack it into carton boxes of like 50 pieces or 100 pieces, and then they are sent out as carton boxes, right? So that's in e-commerce, it's all single piece flow. And we're typically talking about a B2C, which is like a business to consumer e-commerce, not a B2B e-commerce, right? So there, the system needs to be very agile and flexible to handle single pieces. So there are multiple applications. The one that you see on the pictures where it brings a full shelf to a person where he can pick. So most of these concepts are pivoted around two things. One, goods to man, where a person does not need to walk. Typically, in a warehouse, a person spend a lot of time walking. So here I would want you guys to take a guess. A typical person in the warehouse, what percentage of his time do you think he would be walking? Can I get some quick answers on the chat? Yeah, pretty close. 70 is pretty close numbers. The average is around like 70 to 75%, depending on the industry. Is it a grocery or is it a electronics, depending on that. But that's amount of time a person spends walking. And in our context, walking is a non-value added activity. So then the thought comes is, what if the person does not walk but the job comes to him, right? So in a literal sense, automation makes people lazy, right? So that's why you have those mobile control fans and mobile control ACs and TVs and all this stuff, that people don't want to get up and walk. So here as well, so in this context, it is more about the flexibility and productivity. So if the goods come to the man, then can he produce more? Of course he can produce more, because he's not walking and he's not spending energy. He's in one place and he can produce more. So most of the concepts that you see, they're all aimed at goods to man, right? So it can move the whole shelf, as in the first image, or it can bring a set of 6 or 8 specific bins to a particular picker, because they're scattered around in different places from where they need to be picked. So that's where it's aimed at. The second is about augmented reality, right? So I could just give a small example. Probably 15 years back, when we were doing a project with an automotive industry, we are supposed to go and pick some items for the spare parts, right? So uh, and we went to the stores manager and he said, can you take us to this bin where this item is located? This person said, no, I can't take you, because the helper who knows where exactly this item is placed is on leave today. So that was a dependency on the human beings. Only those specialists would know exactly where the items are placed. And this was of course putting a lot of dependency on human beings, their brain, the muscle memory, and all those stuff, right? So as we move out of that concept, and we're looking at more and more flexibility, where any person can come to the job and start adding value to the job or the task that he's doing, then we have to assist him with a lot of intelligence, which the experience was doing. So in terms of inside a facility, if a new picker comes, and the facilities could be lakhs of square feet, if he needs to know where to go, can we have some of these glasses telling him where to take a left and where to take a right, or some light guided, or even the training, if a person needs to pack something, can I train him using those augmented reality kind of setup, so that his learning becomes faster, and he trains in a simulated environment where he doesn't actually consume the physical space, but I can train him and I can train as many people as I want. So augmented reality is gaining importance gradually. But I think by the time you guys finish your graduation or post-graduation, come to the industrial life, I think that would be the norm. Then we're talking about some of the core technology like predicting, which is more about your forecasting and how to plan better, how to respond to a particular demand or expectation better. So there's more about those analytics, deep analytics, data warehousing, and how can I use those deep analytics and into the better planning and execution of the job, right? And we're also talking about machine learning process where where we're talking about when I bring in particular equipment into the facility, how I can make it much more efficient, much more intelligent. How can I bring in those machine learning logics? For example, you guys would have already seen vegetable sortation using color, right? Or the depending on how ripe it is, or the size based sortation. So there are a lot of deep learning, machine learning algorithms available to make the process much more faster and much more efficient. It's very useful in very high speed industries like chip manufacturing, where they produce like thousands of chips in an hour, and like you need to do vision based QC to figure out like which is damaged and which is quality passed, right? We can go to the next slide, Sonali. Thank you. Yeah. But most of the automation that you have seen till now are within the four walls of the warehouse, where it's much easier to automate because the environment is much more predictable. It is within the four walls. It is very and under a very controlled environment. Some of the factors that you want to change to suit your automation, you have the flexibility to change. But as you go outside the four walls, it becomes more challenging because the number of factors that we need to consider for an automation is very large, right? So that's one aspect. Second is, I think Sonali also mentioned about the flexibility we need because of the varying demand during the sale period and non-sale period, right? So if we start having the last mile agents, as we call them, as wish masters, who come and deliver those parcels to you, right? So there's always a dilemma, like what do you plan for? Do you plan for the peak, or you plan for the average? You plan for the peak, and then most of the times they would be sitting idle. And when you plan for the average, there's a sudden increase in load. So then we need to have that flexibility of demand and where I can get those people in the market. And that's where these technologies come into picture, where if I have those flexible sourcing, where I take people only when I require, how can I make their learning curve so fast that they can almost the day one or day two, they can hit the 80% efficiency that a experienced person would have, right? So that's on the marketplace. Marketplace typically means like you go to the market and then you start getting those capacities, right? And we're looking at alternate vehicles as one of the biggest logistics player. E-commerce definitely is considered as inefficient because you start moving small parcels, right? So okay, now let me put the next trivia to you, right? Of the different modes of transport, which is waterways, when we're talking about ships, then you talk about airways, then we have railways, and we have roadways. Which mode of transport is much more efficient at a per unit level? When I say per unit level, if I'm transporting 1,000 units in one truck, then each unit would have certain consumption of power, right? So in these modes of transport, just a quick answer on the chat: waterways, railways, airways, and roadways, which is the most efficient mode of transport at a per unit level? Yep. So waterways is the right answer. Right. Arnav has given the right answer. The reason is the more volume you carry in one go, obviously it is much more efficient, right? But e-commerce, as we said, it's all about single pieces, right? So as we go down to the last mile, the mode of transport with a wishmaster coming in a two-wheeler or coming in a Tata Ace is very inefficient because he carries very limited number of shipments. Just look at the other impact of it in terms of how much of carbon footprint I'll be generating into the ecosystem, right? So we move towards alternate vehicles, alternate mode of energy like a solar or a battery operated electric vehicles to make the supply chain much more efficient in terms of the carbon footprint I'm generating, right? So that's the, and third part is you guys are all in like going to schools and colleges. You guys must be living in big apartments, right? And most of you or your parents must be in your school or office during the daytime, and then there's nobody to receive the shipments. Normally it's left at the security place, right? So is it really safe? Is it really secure? Can we have a place where I can come and leave the shipments and you can pick it up at your own convenience, even at 12 in the midnight or 4 o'clock in the morning, whenever it's convenient for you? um, so we are looking at some of the concepts where it's a manless delivery, where we come and load the shipments and then you just pick it up as and when you want. So these are the flexibilities, these are the customer services that we try to provide through different methods of automation. Drones, I think you're all aware. I think it must be one of the toys in your toy kit. Um, uh, it's an evolving technology. Next question from Vivek is that, is it possible to use drones in deliveries? That's the whole vision for almost most of the companies, because it helps us to reach the most logistically challenging places, like a small village in a remote place where the road transport will become inefficient, right? Today's norms, the permissions which is given by the airport authorities of India or the regulatory authorities do not allow these drones to travel beyond the line of sight, right? So which means like within the line of sight of 2 kilometers or 3 kilometers, somebody should be controlling those AGVs. That is what we have today. But as we speak, there are a lot of pilots and experiments happening with the help of the government to experiment the beyond line of sight drones, which we believe will enable the paths to last mile deliveries to customers using drones. Very, very critical for medical supplies, very critical for emergency supplies, where you can reach much faster. Um, but I do not know what will happen if this becomes a norm, when the traffic will be shifted from the road to the air. So we don't know how that's going to happen. Right. And then, of course, comes the IoT and blockchain. Most of you must have not invested, but at least heard the buzzword of those Bitcoins, which was the big thing a couple of years back. Blockchain technology is going to take a major role in the logistics, where you're going to have those shipment security, track and trace, is going to lead the way the shipments are going to be tracked and delivered in the supply chain, probably 3-4 years down the line. And IoT, not just limited to what Sonali talked about inside the facility. As we move outside, how can I make sure that my shipment is connected till the last second it is delivered to the customer, and I have the ability to know where exactly it is through. There are multiple technologies available. RFID is one of the well-known technology, but there are many ways we can track and trace a shipment as it moves into the last mile, and a lot of investment is happening on those angles. Some of you must have also seen some videos from Amazon or JD, where it's a manless warehouse. It's a different shopping experience, where you just walk in as a customer, you just walk out, and the system understands what all you have picked, and it automatically bills you so that you just can walk out. So these are the lot of new things that are evolving in the automation space. Automation does not always mean robotics. Automation means a lot of things like what we discussed: IoTs, RFIDs, different things that can enable the easy flow and easy visibility of items in the supply chain. Yeah. And we also talked about telematics and autonomous vehicles. Yes, part of that is drones, part of that is autonomous vehicles. We talked about that in the AMRs, right? So vehicles are going to be much more intelligent. I think it will start with the American or the European world first, because there's a lot of discipline there, but it will eventually come here, right? Then voice-based disruptions, AR/VR-based disruptions. It's as good as somebody instructing you exactly what to do. AR/VR, we did discuss there in the couple of slides earlier. There is also a voice-based solution which would tell the person what they need to do, all the confirmations are through a voice. A very good technology for already existing facilities where a lot of physical or infrastructural changes may not be possible right? So it's very, very good in those kind of situation. I did also talk about the alternate retail model where unmanned stores are going to evolve as a core shopping experience that you guys would see like few years down the line. Yep. Sonali, over to you.
Yeah. So now since we already so much talked about how industry are actually, leveraging automation, what are the different use cases where industry can go for automation, right? Or innovating in the area of automation. This actually talks about that how do industry actually explore this opportunity, how they actually start investing in it, right? So there are multiple ways industry or companies choose to invest in automation. One of the ways that can be whether they build a in-house R&D center. So like the way in Flipkart, we have built an automation and robotics center of excellence team. We, like, in Amazon, they have this Amazon labs, Amazon robotics division. Um, so it depends on the company and depends on the vision of the company. How do they feel the need of investing in automation? If they feel the in-house team can actually understand the context much better and thus they can bring a lot more value, they go for an in-house R&D center. There are companies, they kind of have a academic relationship, so they either partner with IITs, different IITs across India, or triple ITs. Also not in India, there are a lot of institutes outside India, right? There's Purdue, there is MIT, Stanford. They have their robotics research labs, right? Where the professor, the students actually partner with these companies to actually do a research on a problem statement that is supplied by the industry. Startup ecosystem. So there are a lot of new companies which are coming in India as well as other countries like China or US, Europe, right? Who are actually doing a research or have a prototype which is solving a unique problem. So in that case, the companies actually also partner with the startup ecosystem, where they help these startups to actually build a prototype or to actually test the prototype in their facility for the use cases, to actually to see the usability of those prototype and the fit for the of that prototype for that industry, right? Second, what we talk about is the vendor engagement. So as I said, not only startup, there are a lot of vendors across the world who have invested in automation and robotics for many years, right? So those many companies actually partner with those vendors. They actually work closely with the vendors to design the solution for their problem statement, but the vendor is responsible for building the robotics and actually implementing at the site, right? Next, we also have innovation shows and competition. There are many companies like worldwide. You see a lot of conferences, a lot of displays of innovation by different vendors, companies happen. So there are exhibitions. Also, some of the companies, they do conduct competitions, right? If you know, Amazon has a competition. In Flipkart this year, we have started. So we focus right now on the engineering students. We have started a robotics competition where we give them a set of problem statement there, and they actually solve that problem statement, build a prototype, and they come in Flipkart environment and do the testing. And obviously, there's a winner who gets rewarded. Again, innovation season competition also one of the very important mean where they kind of share the problem statement to outside world and see how can we bring innovative solutions in to solve our problem statements or solve our use cases. Next is in organic growth. So there are companies like you would have heard of Kiva Robotics, right? So the way Amazon acquired Kiva as one of the big stepping stone for their investment in robotics, and that's how they got their whole AGV based kind of a system and started actually the robotics whole culture or innovation culture in Amazon, right? So companies also make a choice to actually acquire or actually merge other startups or companies who have actually done a good research work in robotics or automation, or have solved certain use cases which are very key for that industry's use case, right? So to get that advantage in a very short span of time, they do go for inorganic growth. So this is talking about how industry explored the opportunity. This is my next is my last slide, and then we can actually take questions. We're actually running late. I'm sorry, but let me just capture this slide in a minute, and then we can take a couple of questions. So this is just an overview of how the whole robotics universe looks like today. And I think this is where I'm going to just spend 1 minute with you guys, because I think you are standing at the junction of your career, where you will be taking a decision, where do I need to go next, right? And most of you have that similar thread that you all are keen about robotics, right? And I think what the slide do talk about it, that robotics is no more restricted to the area of mechanical and electrical engineering anymore, right? So there are a lot of streams that have opened up, right, who are actually now related to robotics. There you can actually invest in computer science and still get connected to robotics. You can do a research in mathematics and still get connected to robotics. Law, cognitive science, psychology, right? Because a lot of this robotics are not getting built to interact with human, right? So they're actually kind of replacing humans. So it's very important to understand that psychology of human and how do they interact with machines. Also biology, your whole neurological system, that you need to understand how my brain works, because if I'm trying to replicate a robot who is actually going to work same as a human brain, so I actually have to do a lot of research in it. So I think if you are keen in robotics, I don't think you have to be stuck to a particular industry or a stream of engineering. You can still go pursue your interest in any of the stream that you like, and you can still go back to robotics, right? Through connection and through, because every stream has some or other connection to robotics, right? So I think this is where kind of the robotics canvas and the whole universe is so huge. I think if you're keen in robotics, no matter which stream you choose, you can actually come back to robotics. I think that's the last point I have, and I think now we can go ahead and take the questions if you have any. So Meenal, Naman,
Yeah.
anyone wants to take over? Yeah.
Yeah, so there were a lot of questions, but I think just because of the time, we can't answer all of them. So I think the first one we have here is by Rishi Modi. So it's how can we attract other large companies and players to India? Since you were talking a lot about, innovation in India and opportunities in India. So how can we encourage that?
Sonali, you're on mute. Sorry.
Oh, sorry guys, I was on mute. Yeah, I think right now there's one good thing in India is the ecosystem is actually started to build. So you can see in India also there are a lot of startups who are actually investing in robotics. There are a lot of students also who are taking keen interest in robotics, right? So I think very critical thing in India to encourage with this whole robotics system is I think you need to have, I was talking about it, Meenal also, we were talking about it, kind of actually building this ecosystem where the students, the companies come together and one is share their knowledge base, share their problem statement, and also help the new talent to actually come up and solve for those problem statement, right? So where I think the one way the India can help is all this industry and the academic and the startup ecosystem coming together through multiple forums, sharing their knowledge base, sharing their problem statements. Also, there are a lot of companies in India who have a significant knowledge about what is happening around the world, right? So we can also bring that knowledge into the right institute with the right forums to actually help a lot of talent in India to grow. Does that answer your question?
Yeah. So thank you so much. We'll just take another question.
Yeah.
So that question is, what do you think is the best way for companies and organizations to reach automation? What is the best way for companies to sponsor robotics and automation? So that was a question.
So I don't think there's a one way, but it also depends on the company's vision, right? So most of the companies who, if they take very inward view or about just solving for themselves, then yes, the companies can actually have a multiple forums like startup ecosystem, academic collaboration, competition, where they put forward, their problem statements. But there are many companies who actually want to does not look at robotics only a area to solve their problem statement, but they kind of look at it, think from a long-term perspective, where how can I actually build the ecosystem in India, right? Because there are many companies, as I said, in India struggles for the lack of talent, for the lack of manufacturing of robotics in India, right? So even for many companies, this is a long journey where they will have to start investing in building the infrastructure, building the ecosystem right away without thinking an immediate benefit. But probably they will have to invest for a couple of years and then they start reaping the benefit of those investments. So it works in both ways. There are something where you can do immediately on a short-term basis, also on a long-term basis where you start building and helping the ecosystem itself. Bala, do you want to add anything?
Yeah, and most of their apprehensions today come from the fact that they're not familiar with those technologies, and hence there is a bit of fear that are they investing in something which they'll not be able to manage, right? But as we speak, there are many more Indian origin companies who are coming into the automation space, and they're much more relevant to the problems that we have in India. And I think this will slowly open the space for more and more automation in the Indian manufacturing setup.
Okay, thank you so much. So I'd just like to thank Ms. Sonali and Mr. Bala for the very insightful talk. We learned a lot about the future of robotics, especially in India, and its importance from an industry perspective. And it not only helped us better understand the technical aspects of robotics, but also the importance of a robotics ecosystem in the industry and multiple e-commerce industry applications. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you. Thanks, Laura, Ayushi. Thanks, Taman. Thanks, Peenal, for giving us this opportunity to actually connect with you. See, for us, you are actually future of the robotics. So we are much more happy to actually share our knowledge base with you guys. So you can actually take that button ahead and I think bring a lot more value in India.
Thank you so much, Sonali. Actually, this has been so insightful, I can't tell you, and it's surely going to basically motivate our students to kind of go deeper in this area. Tomorrow we have Mr. Ramanan from the Niti Aayog addressing us. So, we're going to be asking him also how we can get the government into it as well, because we need to build the ecosystem. We need the industry and the government, to go hand in hand. The whole idea of these workshops is to take this thing to all schools possible, and that's what we are trying to do, take to as many schools and equip the younger generation with real world engineering skills, which is hands-on learning basically, which robotics is going to give us an inroads into learning it at this age. So this really excites all of us, and I speak on behalf of the entire student community, because after our talk last Wednesday actually, we had a chat internally and all the students were excited to see how I can take this forward with you, and I'm going to touch base with you further.
Sure.
Yeah, so this has been amazingly insightful, and thank you so much for your
thank you. Thanks a lot, Neema. Thanks everyone.
Thanks, Bala.
Thank you.
Yeah. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.